Yeah, okay, thank you very much for inviting us along. It's quite interesting for me to be invited to a social computing conference, as my family said to me is that I am to technology what CNA are to fashion, so it's quite an interesting experience, you know. But anyway, today we're going to talk about modelling and optimising participation in online citizen science, part of this NEMO project. Quite interesting one. I mean, I think it's quite important to articulate the position of, say, me and Anita in this project, is that we are actually, you know, business academics. The ultimate vision of this project is to try and stimulate some kind of economic activity, preferably at the end of it all with non-traditional groups, such as ex-prisoners or ex-offenders, ex-drug addicts, inner-city teenagers, ethnic minority groups, you know, people who are not traditionally associated with business models and technologies. But as part of that vision as well, you know, we're not like, we were in a conversation the other day with some academics at Leeds. We're not just wanting to talk to non-traditional groups, you know, we want the conversation with Google and these bigger companies. So it's part of an ongoing conversation is the project. So today, as part of this conversation, we're really looking at how do you get people to contribute to online citizen programs? What's their motivations? Can we use these kind of like voluntary models to generate new forms of economic activity? So that's what we're trying to do. Okay, yeah.
So this is the team, and I think the thing that I'd like to say for the presentation today is many of the presentations we've had are an intersection of computer scientists and social scientists. We are the same. So our team is comprised of, as Gary just said, a couple of people from business schools. We've got Karen and Chris Lintott, who are scientists and also provide the back end of the computation element of the project. And we've got Joe Cox, who's an economist. So like many of you, we're trying to bridge and explore this sort of intersection of computation and social science. And the interesting thing we've got with our project is we're not necessarily, our lab or our study element isn't the world and all that is encompassed with searches on the internet, etc. We are focused on a particular cloud, a cloud that is captured and encapsulated by the Zooniverse project. So we have a quite convenient limitation, and that's what I feel. We're not trying to necessarily extrapolate it out to solve all social problems. We're trying to understand, in my part particularly, as the qualitative analysis person, understand what's going on within this cloud. Why are these people doing stuff for free? And of course there's a very big interest by businesses about this because, hey, who doesn't want loads of people to do stuff for free? And in particular, the Zooniverse is categorising inaccessible data, quite complex data sets, through human intervention. So it's not a computational sweep over, it's the other end of understanding data mining and the relationship between all of this. So this is the lovely picture of our team. So as a foundation, what is citizen science? Because citizen science, as I just mentioned, defines the cloud, who we are. So citizen science, it often involves scientists, and part of the cloud and the people engaging in the Zooniverse are scientists, but also non-scientific types, citizens. And we're very much interested in the relationship. Well, I'm interested because I'm looking at the user participation. What's the relationship between non-scientist and scientist, and also the back end, the computational, making the instrument that brings all of these people together to actually do things for free. So many of you would have heard of a number of these projects. SETI, Galaxy Zoo is one of the projects within the Zooniverse that I'm particularly focusing on, as well as Snapshot Serengeti, and I'll show you a little bit of results around this in a minute. The Sunflower Project and Fold It, which many people are talking about at the moment.
Okay, so what is the vision, le visionnaire, as the French call it, the vision of the actual project? Well, we're trying to really looking at voluntary engagement, how we can use voluntary engagement to actually securitize and identify value and then maximise and optimise that value creation and capture the value So it's very kind of complex sort of like way of looking at this both qualitatively and quantitatively. We've got economists, we've got social scientists, business people, and we've got pure scientists all trying to work around this concept, this interdisciplinary concept of value.
So the aims and goals of this project, we are trying to have a deeper understanding about motivation, trying to look at the cooperation of online participation. We're looking at economic models, so we've had a great description from previous presenters, and you can see not necessarily that the outcomes or the findings particular to digging into the Zooniverse are going to be an economic focus. We're not about how are we going to make money out of citizen participation, but understanding what's going on and then extrapolating or bringing it out, what's it called?
Keep expanding on. Yeah.
Well, modelling it is a step away from the reality of what's going on in the Zooniverse. So that's the application beyond the actual focus of the study.
Okay, so we've gone over quite a bit, sorry, but these are just different people doing their different work packages. Some are like Joe Cox. He's kind of like he's trying to model the voluntary economics. So people like Charles have probably heard him give the same speech about 3 or 4 times now on his work on the voluntary economics. We've got Anita who's looking at the voluntary bit, why people contributing. We've got the scientists who are looking at interventions into their systems and looking at the impacts of their interventions. And then I've got myself who's looking at the Zooniverse team, you know, what are the motivations of the Zooniverse team down at Oxford? Why are they managing this project? Are they out to win a Nobel Prize for civic science and getting people involved in science who wouldn't be involved in science? Or is it just about their own academic careers and their own glory? So trying to critically interrogate the Zooniverse and build an ethnographic inquiry into that, you know. What these people really are about, what are they really doing? Are they doing what they say?
So for those who haven't visited the website, this is what it looks like. Like many of you, we could cut through the Zooniverse in big data numbers. So the Zooniverse has had 1 million subscribers, and that means people who have engaged, signed on, and done some form of categorisation since 2007-8 to the present day. But once we start to bring that down, try to understand that crowd, it's not that 1 million users are online every day categorising madly bits of data. So we are going to need, which we haven't done yet because the computation people are just coming in to the element of our study, to cut through the crowd to have a clearer understanding of that granularity. So we've got the 1 million subscribers, a chunk who only engage or participate for a few days. But then we have another blob of people who go and they live it, they love it. They're on the blog sites, they're categorising hundreds, they're contributing to writing scientific journals. There's a very big difference of what's going on in that crowd. And I think that's an important consideration for much of what we've discussed in the last couple of days. Yes, there's big analytics, macro analysis, but how are we going to link this macro understanding with micro also? And I think this is what we're trying to do in understanding our crowd in the Zooniverse.
Okay, so this is just an example of really that it's a public good, people volunteering bits of data and trying to collate it together.
So this is, today we're going to talk about 2 little packages. One, the user, my perspective, and Gary's package, which is looking at more citizen participation. We haven't got the computation scientists here, and we're going to have to fly through pretty quickly, but I hope it gives you an insight of what we're doing. So, a bit of modelling using the data. From this is 2 projects, and we've crunched, and I crunched, and I'm not a computer scientist, 100,000 tweets and 49,000 tweets. So the first indication is interesting is the main reason why people want to categorise. So thinking about the presentations for the last few days, how as social scientists, computational people, are we going to understand what interesting is? It's a very subjective understanding. So it's not just a matter of tagging it through money, through direct exchanges. We're going to have to, and this is where a user perspective comes in. We have to talk to people about what it is that makes them interesting. We, in my opinion, won't get that through the sweeps of big data. There has to be a balance between the minute and micro-analysis of understanding people's emotions and the big exploration. So the top one is why people love or why they're actually participating in the Galaxy Zoo. They say the most is interesting, but they're also finding it hard. The second one is Snapshot Serengeti. Same idea. Is it work or play? Why are you wanting to be part of this citizen project? In contrast to the same words that were searched over, they said they both love it and almost equally hate it. So how can you measure, as a scientist, the notion of love and hate? So just to try quickly to overlay how we can model this back to economic models, this is an economic model put forward by Wirtz, and it's all about value. So if we're trying to understand the value of participation, we can map it to these ideas of value. Now, we haven't done this yet. This is going to be later, so hopefully we'll be able to report later about these findings. But you can see these models can be quite useful. Another example is a value as play as games. So we've done some level of analysis already looking at, is gaming and play a motivating factor to participate, to code, to categorise? And we're finding that, again, there's a tension between the computerised element and the user element. So you can build in a game into the computer platform as a computational scientist and have specific outcomes. But the group here is making its own games. So they're playing at things. For example, collecting particular pictures, such as the Zorilla. So only about 3 people have collected Zorillas. So rather than trying to categorise masses, they make a game to categorise individual bits and pieces.
Member of our team.
So some of the outputs, if you're interested, we've got a couple of papers coming out. One in Gameful Designs, exploring the value of gaming. And we've termed a coin called gamiised rather than gamification, which is user-stimulated gameplay. So this is you, Gary.
Am I on? I think it's that one where you've got to go right away through. Right, I'll finish. Okay, just 1 minute. Right, okay. I'll just cut the chase then. Really, what this is basically saying, I'll articulate it very quickly, is that when we go and analyse the Zooniverse team down at Oxford, Chris Lintott, Sky at Night, if you watch Sky at Night, he's a presenter on there. He's the sort of like big leader figure, he's the guru, like the Richard Branson of the Zooniverse, you know, cult of personality, or a tyranny of personality, as you may want to call it. But anyway, from him, we're going to go down and analyse their culture, their organisational culture, look at their crowdsourcing methodologies, try and get an idea, are they sort of like civic orientated or are they purely academic? Are they for the civic people or are they for orientation? Then when we get the sort of like an idea of the spectrum, if they're more civic, we're then going to run some future scenarios or some prototyping work. We're going to look at different scenarios where we can sort of like take the concepts of the science and try and take that into the wild, onto the street, and interview people and get their sort of like input into some sort of like civic sort of like orientated projects based on this kind of like science methodology, what Anita you mentioned. And that's just the underpinning theory of it all, trying to build future conversations about smart cities, about big data, about having ordinary people, non-traditional groups involved in conversations using civic science methodologies. That's the vision, that's the overall goal. So can we get people who've been in prison, can we get people who are ex-offenders to come in and have a conversation to say to these people, look, you can have a future, an economic future as well as a social future. And again, just to finish off, that's the key word. We are business people, so this ultimate vision is an economic vision, isn't it? That we're trying to stimulate economic activity in Chapeltown, in Moss Side, or some of these underprivileged areas. That's one of the visions. Okay, yeah, I think I've mentioned that. Yeah.
So just quickly a plug for it. If you're interested, there's our social media and an ongoing update of what's going on in the project. And we'd very much value if people are interested in or have an explanation or a challenge for us to cut through our crowd please email us and say, why don't you consider doing it this way?
Yeah, it's a conversation. It's not a closed shop. You know, we've got a network linked with this project. So we've got over like 50 international academics. So if anybody, by all means, get involved. You know, it's not a closed shop. If you've got ideas or you want to participate, come to some of the workshops we're organising. Just see us at the end. Drop your email, and you're welcome to come along and join the conversation.
Right. Thank you. Thanks very much. Any questions?
You went very quickly over this term gameise that you mentioned. Could you perhaps go into that a bit more detail, because it's got a lot of ties to the NEMOG project as well?
Well, the idea that we had from gameised is because we're exploring work and play as a motivator to be involved in citizen science. Work, obviously, you're getting paid. Play, much more leisure time. So in industry, gaming is seeing a way to stimulate people to participate, and we're seeing this not only in many apps, for example, or trying to get you to buy things or play a game and do this with not just necessarily flash up ads, but stimulating your activity. So that sort of gamification is actually understanding how to make a game embedded in the technology for an outcome. Now, we're saying that you can see instances in the citizen science project where nobody has thought about the gaming element, and yet they're, in their social interaction, creating a game. Now, in a longer presentation, and this paper that I mentioned, we've got examples when the categorizations of galaxies is happening. Somebody invented a game in the blog of gathering all the galaxies that are in the shape of the alphabet. So as a game, and they egg each other on and collect them like the Pokemon, you've got galaxies in the shape of A, B, right through. And they've succeeded, and then they all... So there's this playful element that's brought into the actual task. So it's not built into the technology. So what we're saying is that's a different concept to gamification. So it's user-stimulated gameplay in a technology environment.